Hello, Amit.
Mr. Andrew, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? How's things?
Very good. You look different.
Yeah, that's right. I dyed my hair.
Yeah, amazing. I haven't dyed my hair.
I got the old Just for Men out and painted it up. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, I decided
Fantastic.
to finally explore the barbers. So yeah, that's I'm comfortable now being back on camera. So I've had a cutout for the last couple of weeks. So yeah, back to normal now.
Excellent. Good stuff. Cool. How's your week
How are you
been?
doing?
Yeah, very good. Good week. Football season's finished, so that's a bonus. Um, Hopefully, people can stop talking about Liverpool and all that kind of stuff for the next 6 weeks. So yeah, feeling pretty positive actually, which is difficult for an Everton fan, but yeah, it's all good.
Nice.
Yourself?
That's good. Yeah, no, good week, busy week. Even though it's short, I think trying to get everything in. The combination of end of the month plus the Eid break that's coming up. There's pretty much a good amount of time left. I think we've got today and tomorrow, and then obviously end of the month. So yeah, I think hopefully the rest of the 2 days here are going to be busy packed, jam packed.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Thomas. We've already had our first kind of message in, and I guess predictably, if it's coming from Thomas, it's talking about your hair. So yeah, thanks for that. So guys, thanks very much for joining the show today. We've got actually, I'm really excited about today. I say every week, and I was going to try and not say that.
It's getting tiring.
Yeah, honestly,
you're excited about everything.
I'm just super excited all the time, but like I really am excited about this week's show because it's very real, very close to home, and so yeah, I think it'd be really good to kind of share what's going on. Guys, there's quite a lot of people joining the show today. So the way, if you haven't seen any of our shows before, we try to keep these as interactive as possible. So like Thomas, if you do want to send your comments in, you've got two options. One is through the chat and the other is through the Q&A button. Both of those are at the bottom of the screen. But any questions, any comments, anything you want to know, we'd be more than happy to kind of tackle those as they come in. Yeah, and if they're about LinkedIn, that'd be even better. So yeah, so I think on that note, Andrew, yeah, look, I think when we were trying to figure out what the topic for this week's show was going to be, I just felt that LinkedIn would be a really good place to really start. In terms of we started this show in the middle of the pandemic almost, and we don't even know if it's a middle yet, but what felt like the middle back then. And then one of the platforms that we kind of used to get the message out was LinkedIn. And so yeah, I thought it'd be very good to I thought it'd be very good to really kind of take on the topic, share some of our experiences, why we are so fond of LinkedIn, and really let's just kind of see if we can kind of help people out there, because I think at the moment the noise on LinkedIn is very much about people sharing a lot of content, people looking for jobs, people who are definitely kind of trying to build a personal brand, and also from companies that are really trying to stay visible. So multi-purpose platform in many respects. But I guess it'd be wrong of me to kind of carry on, because I guess the reason why we were so kind of involved and embedded in LinkedIn as a platform over the last few months, I guess comes from you, Andrew. So yeah, so let's start there. How did you let's talk about your journey with LinkedIn.
Yeah, sure. I basically, I think LinkedIn had been one of those platforms that, quite honestly, I had neglected. Let's say that. I don't want to be as strong as ignore, but neglected perhaps, to the point where even my photograph was something that was 15 years ago. So anyone that actually met me in person was like, oh, you look very different from your LinkedIn profile. But I think that I kind of re-sparked my interest. We were in Inbound in Boston last year, and there was a lady who basically spoke from LinkedIn, and it kind of resonated. I think it was one of those things that was really, why aren't we using this, and why am I not using this? So on the back of that, really, and then talking to some other people, I just started to look at LinkedIn in a different light. I guess I'd kind of almost, fallen for the Middle East mentality, which was, it's a place where people look for jobs and search for jobs. And I think that's very different elsewhere, and I think it has changed here recently as well. So, started off exploring the platform, took on what she'd gone through to say, well, listen, this is kind of best practice. This is, what you can do on the platform. This is how you can engage with people. So kind of taking that on board, and then really kind of investigating and experimenting with the platform. So, really, I'd say for the first couple of months, it was very voyeuristic. It was seeing what other people were doing. It was, connecting with people. It was taking the time to complete my profile, update the profile, kind of make it relevant, add in different elements to that. And then really for the first, I'd say kind of 3 months, almost 4 months, it was very much just seeing what other people were doing, and kind of getting used to using the platform again. I know that may sound a bit silly, but being away from it for so long, I wanted to understand, actually, am I going to get any value from it, right? Even on a personal level or a business level. So for me, I found the new app that at that time had been updated by about 6 months, really user friendly, really nice to connect, nice navigation. And I found, that the app was for where I'd spent the majority of my time. So I'd say that was, first few months really, just kind of exploring it. And anyone that I say to who kind of wants to start their LinkedIn journey, or kind of switch back on their profile, as it were, I think that's a good place to start. Just see what other people are doing, and either search on hashtags that there are available now, look at groups, go and see particular organizations, or perhaps people with a large following, that you can see what they're kind of talking about, and how they're sharing content, right, on the platform.
Yeah, no, I think you've made a couple of good points there. So okay, so you kind of sat in the dark on the platform for a few months, kind of watched what was going on, being very kind of voyeuristic. And so what made you what made you come out?
Yeah, brilliant. Amazing. You're the one that gets excited about everything and got jazz hands. But anyway, yeah. So no, I'd say that it was really kind of reading more about the organic reach, and seeing how some posts were just kind of exploding as far as visibility, views, engagement, and I hadn't seen that across any other kind of social platform, and there didn't appear to be any kind of paid activity behind it. It was people just sharing genuine stories and genuine content. So I thought that, okay, let's kind of start sharing some of my thoughts. And I think we obviously meet a lot of people, meet a lot of companies, organizations, and a lot of time it's based on conversation and opinions. So I started looking at Google News, Apple News, and pulling in stories that I felt were relevant to me. So it wasn't necessarily always about, digital marketing or sales or that activity. There was tech, there was things that interest me that were still in the kind of business world. And I started to link to that content. So I'd still write a bit of an opinion piece about it. There might be, Snap are talking about a new filter that they've pulled in, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm excited about this because of X. But it was very personable at that point. So it was still content I thought not only interests me, but I thought it might interest other people. So it was pulling, different ads that were showing them interest, and just some real opinion-based pieces. And then from day one, keeping it in line with something that I felt like I could keep up with, right? So not something that you start and then stop and start and stop. And I have done that previously, but I've been really honest about it. When there was a period of about 2 weeks I hadn't posted, and I jumped in there and did like a little meme of Terminator with the Terminator looking for John Connor, saying, "Have you seen this man on LinkedIn?" So I think I've kept it kind of very owned, as it were, right? So that was a kind of second phase. Second phase was still kind of looking and seeing what people are doing, and then posting up that content. And then then about 4 months ago, because I was genuinely overwhelmed by the reach. You know, I just to give you some reference, you know, probably about 1,500 connections, 1,500 odd followers. It's not like any grand scale, but I was getting mad reach on these posts. So, you know, it's kind of like 400 views, 1,500 views, 2,000 views. And I thought, well, okay, that's interesting. You know, how is that working? And organically as well, right? So posting at different times of the day, you know, looking at how that content resonated. So, you know, at that point I was like, well, okay, I've got an opinion piece, but it's still other people's content, right? At that point.
Well, so let's talk about the content, because I think you know, for those who follow Andrew on LinkedIn, I guess a lot of so in the early days, I guess a lot of your content was text based, or was it video?
Yeah. So first of all, if you're not, you know, connecting with me straight away, that's ridiculous. Why, you know, not even connecting? But anyway, so yeah, the early days, it was always, so one of the early recommendations was to have an image or a video or something there to capture, because obviously a lot of people are still using the phone, so they scroll. You got to, you know, be engaging. So I would always put in a picture and then link back to, but I'd be linking to Forbes magazine, TechCrunch, you know, Ad Age, different, you know, kind of industry, you know, publications basically. Right. So it was opinion based on things that other people were writing.
Okay, and then you're using video to communicate that across.
So that was the next phase. I basically 4 months ago, I decided to, you know, when COVID really kind of started, I'd been talking about going on video, and in quite honestly, it's something that, you know, you and the other partners in Nexa have been speaking about, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, something crazy like that. Need to get on video, need to get on video. And I've always said in the past, I'm very comfortable with environments like this when it's live and it's in the moment. But recording, then putting out, recording, putting out is I don't find it as interesting, but I found it more of a challenge. Let's say that.
Sure.
So what I started to, go on.
No, I was going to say it's one of those things that as an agency you end up advising everyone else to do, but almost neglecting it for yourself. And I know that we've 100%. Had so many conversations where we've said to people, look, you need to start creating content, create video content. Right. Well, no, yeah, possibly. But
I've said that.
Right. Okay, amazing. So, all right. So you started then creating video content.
Yeah. So then it was kind of like, okay, this feels like the perfect time, because people I found were reaching out, you know, asking questions, and I thought, you know what, it's time to kind of jump on video. So, you know, started doing videos, and then actually went and purchased one of those light rings, because then I was working from home, and I had a kind of a bit of a setup where I was doing that, and still actually from the phone. So, you know, but doing video about doing video about other people's content, right? So I moved away from typing, because in the end it got to the point I wrote one piece where LinkedIn was like, you can't write anymore. Why don't you turn this into an article? And I thought, oh, wow, okay. So, you know, I thought, well, why not just actually talk for a minute and a half? And then, you know, then video may resonate a bit better, you know, and that was it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think if we go back, I mean, look, there's a lot of things you've said that I can relate to. So LinkedIn, I'll be honest with you, didn't really use it at all, because it was, like, I think like what you mentioned, it was very much a kind of job seekers portal, and all the requests seem to be around, you know, can I get a job at your company and things like that. And I think to the point where I still didn't really take it seriously when you got on board, because I felt as if, you know, it's good, you know, Andrew's out there, let's kind of see what happens. And then obviously you started sharing insights as to the number of people that were, you know, engaging with your content. Whether they were kind of just viewing it, whether they were commenting. And then what started happening is I started getting comments from other people, you know, when I'd see them out socially, and they'd be like, oh, Andrew's all over LinkedIn, I've seen his content. That beard's ridiculous was normally part of that conversation.
And they just because
they hadn't seen you. I mean, like you said, your profile picture was like, you know, almost fraudulent. So I think what it was is, that kind of opened my eyes. I remember one day I just literally opened my LinkedIn platform or account, and I had, I don't know, 600 requests, and I literally took a couple of hours going through each of those, and I had a ton of emails and a ton of other messages, and literally I thought, you know what, let me get myself up to date, because there seems to be something here. And still there was a lot of people there just, connecting because they wanted to sell me something, or job requests and stuff like that. But I think it was the fact that people were commenting on your content, where I thought, okay, this is quite interesting. And then I started looking at your content, and I thought, hold on, this isn't right, because Andrew's doing a brilliant job engaging his audience with other people's content. No, genuinely, I was like sitting there going, why isn't he sharing our content?
Don't come to our restaurant. Go down the road.
Right, pretty much. And I was like, okay, well, look, we've got some good content, but perhaps what we need to do is create better content, so you can start sharing our content. Because look, great, if you've got that reach, then let's create content that gives you perhaps more ammunition to post more often. But actually, we see more benefit of that rather than comments about Andrew's beard. So the whole idea, I think, from our perspective at that point was, okay, well, let's look into this a little bit further.
Yeah.
And I think it was COVID had just hit, so we were obviously still trying to figure out what to do, how this was going to impact us. I think we've also looked at, the other kind of marketing and advertising activities that we had going on. We did what we advise every single one of our clients not to do, which was basically stop advertising. But we did that for a couple of reasons. I think the first was, well, we felt as if we'd built a very strong organic machine, and perhaps now was the time to test it. We ranked pretty well all over Google, so let's see the real power of that. And then the second part was, actually, is there somewhere better we can be spending our money rather than on Google and those kinds of platforms? And actually how it kind of panned out, I guess, is the answer was yes, we could spend our money in a better place. And then what we ended up doing was spending it on creating more content. And I think that sort of coincided with me really kind of becoming more engaged and sort of creating content myself, which I was then sharing. And that became really interesting because, again, enormous amounts of organic reach. And I guess one of the challenges is, we're not used to seeing organic reach from a social media platform, right?
Anywhere.
Right? Because if you look at Instagram, you look at Facebook, and you look at Twitter, and all of these, the algorithms are kind of really much determined now by how much money you're potentially investing in these platforms, or whether you're a group, say, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For those platforms which are applicable. But for LinkedIn, all of a sudden, we weren't spending any money on LinkedIn, yet thousands of people were seeing our content every time we published it.
Exactly.
And I think that became interesting, because I think very quickly we started to see more traffic to the website, and again, more engagement. And I think that became really interesting, I think.
And of course, at the same time, when we started getting involved, we then almost reactivated our LinkedIn, as in Nexa, because that itself had become dormant. And I think it was a surprise. I think it may have been Rav that turned around and said, we've got 16,000 followers on LinkedIn, I think, at the time. And I think that was a surprise as well, because we'd been relatively inactive. We'd obviously put up a post that was linked back to a blog, but there wasn't the regularity that there was. So, at that point, we obviously started to engage ourselves and then engage Nexa as well, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, that was bizarre when we looked at that, and we was almost kicking ourselves, weren't we? Because we said, okay, we've got all of these people that are following us, and we looked at the names, and those people were like, okay, these are very kind of, important people within our industry. We need to be doing more. Yeah. So I think, I guess if we go back to kind of that mid-March moment when we were like, okay, what do we do, right? We seem to have got some traction from a LinkedIn perspective. I think a lot of people around us were literally kind of head in sand at that moment, because they weren't really sure what was going to happen with their business. But we kind of took it on ourselves, and with the help of the entire team at Nexa, actually really kind of embarked on I'd say a two-part strategy. The first was, guys, let's create content, right? Whatever you find interesting within what we do, even if it's not potentially related to what we do, but adds value and can help somebody, let's kind of create that content. let's host it on our blog. And then that gives each of us more content that we can potentially share on LinkedIn that can drive more people back to our website and give greater awareness from a from an Nexa perspective. And the second thing we did, and again, I've got to give kudos to you, is basically the internal training, because I think that was a brave step where you decided to train everyone in the team to become very familiar about a recruitment platform, essentially, is what we potentially saw it, which was, but yeah, I think it'd be worth going into that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, when we started to see the power of the connections and the networks and how the algorithm was working, it was then to say, well, hold on, we've got, a whole family at Nexa that also has their own connections, has their own networks, and again, I guess because traditionally we've seen it as that place of either people poaching people or kind of people looking to recruit themselves into other positions. And a lot of employers, I think, would kind of shy away from that. But we looked at the positive spin on this and the fact that, and we told them pretty flat out that this is going to improve, your search visibility, your visibility to other industries, other people, even other companies. I mean, so we weren't afraid of that. So we kind of created, I think it was about a 20-25 minute video, and then obviously did a live session, then the recorded session, and then shared that. And that was basically getting your profile up to where it needed to be. And then again, the same kind of tips, right? How I started, because I felt like there wasn't anything out there. And I looked, there was kind of best practice, but there wasn't anything around how you start your journey. So for me, I just took it very personally, and it was like, okay, look, you don't have to start writing straight away. Just get something out there, just start looking at other people's posts, start engaging, talking, getting involved in groups, writing a comment, liking something even, just to get started. So a lot of it was around getting yourself started. And then obviously, as far as sharing the content, start sharing content. So obviously that dovetailed quite nicely into, you obviously, working on aggressively creating more content, and that going out and us having a platform. So now it's not that everything is shared by everybody. That may be a bit of an overkill, but people kind of cherry pick, right? They cherry pick what's interesting to them. And I think, we're doing quite a broad range of topics. So it's not just, how to advertise through Instagram, for example, which is a popular blog at the moment. But I think, perhaps you want to talk about some of that early journey as far as collaboration, right? You started to collaborate with people on some of this content as well.
Yeah. I think before I'll definitely talk about it. I think the key to it was that when we decided that we wanted to train everyone internally about LinkedIn, how to use it, how to build their personal brand equity up. I think it is very easy for people to say, well, actually, what are we doing here? Are we kind of setting ourselves up for potential failure because, increased brand visibility, increased, personal brand credibility? Is that, does that mean that our team are going to become, more approachable by others? I think the other way to look at it is it showed more strength and depth from a company perspective. So rather than just seeing Amit and Andrew out there from an Nexa perspective, I've got absolutely no issues with there being, 50 or 55 faces of Nexa out there on LinkedIn. Because I think that shows real kind of strength and depth, right?
I mean, to the point where we now have some, employees for Nexa on LinkedIn that actually are fictitious. So I mean, we may want to mention that we've reached a point now where our content does resonate with people, and it does get shared, and it does have views, and there's credibility attached to being part of the Nexa family. So what's interesting is we all started to see these requests from, I think I had a request from one of our marketing executives in Sao Paulo in Brazil. But I was kind of like, we opened a Brazilian office, because I was unaware. I would have really liked to be involved in that. And the fact is that we started seeing this coming through. So it was fictitious accounts, but they were, hey, I'm a copywriter at kind of LinkedIn, at Nexa, and I'm connected. it was unbelievable. I mean, we started to see that as well, right? So it was odd.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. And we have got a Sao Paulo office. We just haven't told you, Andrew. But
Amazing.
no,
That's
the
ridiculous.
reality is that, yeah, there's about, I think, 10 or 12 people who are pretending to work for us at the moment.
Yeah. Well, we've
Absolutely
reported.
bizarre.
I mean, it's a process that you go through. Obviously, we've reported, and I think the thing is that we're obviously we're all connected, and you can see who's connected to who and who the real people are. But yeah, it's I guess it's wildly flattering, right, to get to a point. But yeah, going back to your point, I think the thing is that we want to make sure that people can connect the dots. So there's, there may be, let's say 10 people that regular clients see and prospects of Anexa, but there's an entire team, an army behind it. So I think this is a nice opportunity for, that visibility to increase as well, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, no, so yeah. And I think going back to that earlier point about the collaboration, I think what we saw very quickly again was the traction that we were getting from these posts. But even at that point, a lot of the content we were creating was still very Nexus centric. So it was, content that one of our team had created. And what we were doing was sharing that content and people coming back to the website. And it was good. I mean, certainly we saw an impact from that, very quickly. But I think it was a conversation I had with one of my friends, and we've mentioned him on the show before, a guy called Mark Williams.
Yeah.
And he's out there, he's a business professional, he's a leader, got his own business, really strong kind of background within sort of HR consultancy. So very unrelated to Nexa and what we do. But what we started talking about was actually, the fact that our audience is business owners. There's a lot of leaders and business owners and decision makers. Same audience that he deals with. And what we started to see were kind of real trends in terms of the kind of information people were interested in, right? And so that's where we started to say, okay, well, look, perhaps there's an opportunity to collaborate on a piece of work. And literally over the space of a week or so, it wasn't too long, we'd created an article about the 5 stages of business crisis and catastrophe, because that's pretty much where everyone was. Everyone wanted to understand, if the emotions that they were kind of feeling at that moment in time, were they the same emotions that other people were feeling, right?
Yeah.
And so we looked at that kind of human side of, kind of feelings and decision making and all of those elements, created this article, didn't mention digital marketing once, published that in collaboration with Mark. And then that became really interesting, because what that allowed us to do is actually not just tap into, say, my personal network, Nexa's network, but it also allowed us to tap into Mark's network, which was very different to ours. But we're speaking to the same people, right? It's still the same audience that we're targeting. And so that became really interesting, because that kind of blew up very quickly. That article has now been picked up multiple times by others who we neither of us know who these people are.
Just a couple of days ago, right? Again, it got kind of republished.
Yeah, and we were trying to figure out why someone had just reshared it. And I think that brings us quite nicely onto another point. I'll come back to the collaboration piece, but within LinkedIn, if you are creating content, sharing that, and people are going back and really kind of reading and digesting the content you create, I think that creates, multiple other kind of benefits. And the first of those, and I'd say the biggest of those, is a search signal for Google. So Google's SEO algorithm essentially determines and looks at different pieces of content on the web, sees if people are engaging with that content. And if they are engaging with that content, that's like a search signal. And that search signal basically gives that piece of content a boost. And so we got this, interaction a few days ago, and it's, there's comments coming in from literally all over the world. So I thought, okay, how did they find it? Went back, looked on Google, and we're actually now ranking #1 for that article for multiple, stages of crisis searches and things like that. Really interesting. Again, it's an article not related to digital marketing, hosted on a digital marketing website, but ranking really well Google. So again, if you are creating content, really think about, okay, look, is this the kind of content that, perhaps has some longevity associated to it? People can pick up on it. people can reference it, you know, not just a couple of months later, but perhaps a couple of years later,
Yeah.
because that's going to give you so many other benefits, you know, from your whole kind of digital platform perspective. And then obviously with the success of that collaboration, we've partnered with people now in New York. I've got, I think there's another article coming out very soon, with a group of companies in New York who focus on remote working, employee engagement, employee performance measurement, and all of those elements where we've created, you know, quite a big and very, very nice article with some really nice data, and that's going to be published, I think, next week. So,
Perfect.
so again, you know, this doesn't have to be, you know, if you're thinking about where do I start with content, this doesn't have to be okay, you know, if I write something, is anyone going to read it? Partner with somebody who is happy to, you know, collaborate with you, and then take advantage of, you know, multiple networks, because I think that's a real game changer as well.
Yeah, well, I think also it's deciding your own path. I mean, I'm still doing videos on you know, LinkedIn. I half joked today about not being on there for a week because basically I was, you know, a bit vain about my old haircut. But I think you obviously have continued to increase and ramp up, and yours is still very in a tech space, right? I mean, I don't think you've done a video yet, right?
No, and until I have a beard like yours, I'm not going to bother. No, but basically,
you're just going to do a weekly show for an hour when you're live. That's your video.
That's me getting out there. Look, I think it comes down to being comfortable with the type of content you're at. Look, for me, I love writing. I like kind of, you know, that's my space. You know, when I'm doing that, that's when I'm at my happiest. So that becomes much more kind of naturally to me than you know, getting a phone in front of my face and saying stuff. You know, so but I think that works well. I think it works well. I think we're both speaking to perhaps different audiences, but in a different way as well, right?
Yeah, and I think also, you know, what I've said to everyone that kind of, you know, decides to get involved on LinkedIn and start to ramp up their activity, it has to be, you know, very personal. It has to be, you have to have a comfort level with it. Otherwise, you just won't continue, right? It is going to be something that you kind of stop and start and stop and start. I think the thing is, you have to have a comfort level with how you're interacting. And again, it may be, you know, that you forever share other people's content, but you add an opinion piece to it, and you know, that's fine. It's not. It's about your comfort level, and ultimately, you should be doing it, you know, because you want to do it. Now, what's happened is there's been a whole host of other positives that has presented itself from our activity, you know, from, you know, not only connecting to individuals that I personally haven't spoke to for years, and you know, I've just, even people WhatsApp me that I haven't heard from and say, you're all over my LinkedIn feed, or, you know, you're doing some great content, or I'm hearing you guys, whatever. But also, you know, we've got direct business now from our increased activity on LinkedIn. You know, we can attach deals to people that have reached out through Messenger. Hey, I want to connect. I want to understand this. I want to understand how to do this. You know, so, and that wasn't, in all honesty, when we first started this and I started jumping on LinkedIn, there was, you know, possibly that was in the back of my mind. You know, and it might be great if eventually this converts. But now we're seeing conversions. You know, we're seeing connections and different types. I mean, not only from the Nexa perspective, but also recently had a speaking opportunity where I had a session with the IMA, and we did a session to close to 2,000 students, and it was on LinkedIn, how to increase your digital profile, right, across the GCC. So, and that was, again, somebody that's connected with me, saw that I was talking, saw that, you know, my kind of growth on LinkedIn, and how I literally, honestly, just was not available on there at all, to the point where it was like, okay, right, it's another post from Andrew. You know, but obviously connecting and doing that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important part of that, I think that was a paid speaking engagement. So it's not just about winning business, but actually people seeing you as a thought leader, you know, and then saying, okay, look, I need to engage Andrew for our event. And I think, you know, again, these are wonderful kind of byproducts of what we're talking about. But again, it doesn't happen unless you're out there. I think there's a couple of things that, you know, you mentioned about, okay, people are, you know, contacting you because they'd seen your content and things like that. I went through a patch of whether I was on a webinar, whether it was just a normal meeting. or whether it was just, out socially, once the kind of lockdown measures were kind of
Yeah.
reduced. And I would say 7 out of 10 people I'd speak to would be coming up to me saying, you guys are absolutely everywhere. Your content is everywhere. And then, for people who are kind of more intrigued about it, were saying, okay, but is it working? Right. And it was firstly, it was great to hear, because, the data we're seeing is that, number of people like a post, for example, right? But I guess what we've both seen, just from hearing, speaking to people, is there's a lot of people that are engaging with our content and not ever liking anything, right? So there was a lot of
people like me those first few months, right? Just completely background, character, kind of digesting the content, watching videos, reading articles, but never doing anything with it, right? So not liking, sharing, commenting, posting, resharing, none of that. I spent a good part of a few months, doing that. And I think there is a large audience on LinkedIn which still do that. And we know, like you said, we had yesterday, oh, that was a great article. Really? You didn't share it, you didn't like it, you didn't, so it wasn't, but they're still digesting the content, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's important for, again, if you are creating content that's out there, you're brave enough to put it on LinkedIn, hoping for, a ton of different engagements. You may get it, but you may just have an audience of people who are just, happily digesting the content you're sharing, but actually not acting on the back of that, right? But that's fine. It's fine. I think LinkedIn are pretty good at kind of giving you data in terms of how many people have seen your post, how many people have clicked through it, track it through Google Analytics or HubSpot or whatever you're using, as a kind of tracking tool. But, that's your really kind of important data, not necessarily the amount of likes or comments that you get. So I think that's really important. So, I think what we're saying is very sort of consistent in the sense of, I think you've got to be out there to start sort of creating that content. And
and I mean, I think the platform is flexible enough that, in all honesty, if you're a lone ranger, or if you just want to kind of do a bit of personal brand building, you have the ability to do that on the platform. So you don't necessarily, obviously, our journey has, taken a couple of different paths where we're now producing content, we're tracking that back, we're understanding how it's working on the web. But, the LinkedIn platform, it does have other features on there. So it does allow you to write articles, on there and kind of directly on the platform. It does allow you to produce video on the platform.
I'll tell you, let's look at that, because we've tested that as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So again, we've created content which we said, do you know what? Let's post that out on the LinkedIn platform, LinkedIn's own publishing platform first, before we put it on our blog, and let's see the impact of that. Very little difference, and I was really surprised by that, because I think when I first played around with LinkedIn a few years ago, there was quite a lot of engagement from those direct posts where you can write a full article on LinkedIn, and then for some reason, we've just not seen that. I've seen just as much, if not more, engagement. We're actually taking people away from LinkedIn and onto our website than when we've hosted content on that. And I don't know whether they've, tweaked the algorithm. I'm sure they have, but I think that's an interesting point. But just wanted to add that in there.
No, definitely. I mean, and I think you said, the algorithm's unusual. I mean, there are certain things genuinely that you can do to kind of increase your chances of visibility, like tagging individuals in, like tagging countries, using hashtags, using images, using video. All of these things are kind of, add value to your posts and potentially can increase the reach. But they are continuing to evolve the platform as well. So, things like polls, for example, that they added, a couple of months ago, giving the ability to poll to your followers. One of the things that's been released actually only in this region is stories. So now, very similar to Instagram stories or Snap stories, there's now LinkedIn stories, and you have the ability to post stories. They last 24 hours. So I think they're also looking at how to engage with different type of users, right? So away from that business focused business, it's a bit stuffy, you've got to be wearing a suit, perhaps suit and tie job for LinkedIn, versus well, no, it's for everyone, right? And then it's an opportunity to collaborate. It's an opportunity to, you know, digest content, share content, get involved with people. So there's a whole, you know, huge amount of groups on there, connecting business professionals and collaborating with people. And I think that's what's nice as well. I mean, you know, the collaboration side, you touched upon this previously, but you know, I've reconnected with people, collaborated with people on perhaps they've got a podcast or they've got a show. I've gone on their podcast, I've gone on their show. We're going to invite them on ours. So these are other kind of content creators that are using the platform now to kind of really explore. And what's interesting is, you know, through my kind of increased engagement, I've had, you know, good friends say, okay, well, what do I need to do? Right. So tell me what I need to do because I want that. Right. You know, to the point where I've had friends that have gone out and bought the light rings, right. To kind of, you know, and that's what I'm missing today. Actually, I need a good light. Anyway, I've got to forgot I'm in the office. But I think the thing is that that's great to see as well. You know, when I see kind of someone putting up first post, I mean, the IMA event that I did last week was phenomenal because, you know, these are graduates, fresh graduates looking for opportunities. You know, and first and foremost, I said this is an incredible time to be a graduate because now globally, the whole world is kind of been shifted to the point where you've got opportunity globally now. There's no kind of boundary by, you know, geography or demographics now because everyone is open to this environment first and foremost. But it was fantastic to see, you know, and I was encouraging them. I was like, right, put your first post up, and literally that kind of evening, right until kind of 2-3 o'clock in the morning, there was posts. There was, you know, so it was exciting to see, you know, not only kind of people that are there, you know, working and professional, but people right at the very beginning of their career, starting to use the platform and never understanding it, never even thought about it as a platform where there is, you know, an opportunity to learn. There's an opportunity because there's a whole, I mean, there's other things. There's an academy on there. There's, you know, you've got the opportunity to study on there, different diplomas as well. So there's a whole host of other things associated to the platform, and you kind of find these things as you become more engaged on it, right?
Yeah. Look, I think you're right. I think the you know, again, I think this question about the algorithm and in terms of the organic reach on LinkedIn, I think we need to possibly talk about that.
Sure.
You know, what are your thoughts, Andrew? Like, you know, we've seen it with Facebook. Facebook in the early days, the organic reach was incredible. Same with Instagram and Twitter. Do you think LinkedIn will go down that road where you know, they'll focus more on sponsored content as opposed to really building this sort of community network?
It's a good question. I think there's a couple of differences here. First and foremost, LinkedIn is actually one of the most expensive ad platforms that we use, right? So first and foremost, if we kind of stack up LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snap, TikTok, LinkedIn is still the most expensive platform to engage with. And that's mainly because you can target very much, you know, company name, job title, etc. The filtering options from a B2B perspective are strong, but also there is a membership subscription as well. So they are generating revenue from members. So obviously, look, everything that I do is free membership. I've bounced in and out of becoming a gold member, bit Wayne's World. But no, not Wayne's World, Austin Powers. But that was an evil guy, right? Gold member. But so you can jump in and out of the gold membership. You told me that if I went on a tangent, you would reel me back in, but you didn't. And I just saw your eyes roll, even though I've been looking at the green light. So when it's kind of comes to that, everything we're talking about is free. So I'm not paying LinkedIn anything. I'm still getting that visibility. I'm still getting that reach. So I think the thing is that because they've got other revenue streams, that has possibly helped. Also, I mean, look, the sheer size of LinkedIn compared to say like a Facebook or that, the news feed is not going to be as busy. I think what's interesting though about LinkedIn is they do throw things up from 9 days ago, from 3 days ago, from a week ago. They continue to deliver what they feel is relevant content. And I think because you're connected with individuals from a business perspective, usually that means there's some, you know, business connection or some sector connection. So for example, you know, if I'm connected to someone and they comment on a post or they like a post, the chances are that I might be interested in that. And I think that's quite different, because when you're connected at an industry level versus a personal level, you know, we're very good friends, but we're very different, right? Just when you and I talk about football, we're definitely talking about two different types of football. I'm obviously talking about a real football. You're talking about soccer, right? So the fact is that, but on a professional level, the chances of both being interested in the same things, you know, like at the moment, obviously we're looking at, let's say, work from home, and you know, Google announcing yesterday that obviously, you know, now 2021 they're looking at to July 2021 to keep people, you know, working from home, and that, so that there's an interest there. So I think that's what's interesting about the algorithm, because it is really connecting you on that level. What do you think? I mean, do you think?
Yeah, well, look, I agree with you. I think look, the major benefit of LinkedIn is that they're owned by Microsoft. Okay,
yes.
so right, so when you're owned by, you know,
True.
1.3, 1.4 trillion dollar company,
you
know, the pressure to kind of make revenue targets perhaps isn't as high, because it's, you know, essentially a very small part of Microsoft's revenue.
Yes.
So I think that helps. I think Microsoft can afford that kind of luxury of making, you know, keeping it very kind of high from a organic perspective.
Yeah.
You know, advertising is perhaps at a premium, which I think also means that it's not for everyone. In the same way that perhaps Facebook and Instagram have had to modify algorithms because they've got so many advertisers. Exactly. So I think there's a number of different things which influence and impact this. My hope is that it stays like this, okay? Because it'll be a shame to, again, build up a large audience of followers and connections on the platform, where then, you know, the goalposts move as they did with, you know, Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook.
You know, so I hope.
That, I mean, you know, Facebook was dramatic. I mean, very dramatic. I remember going to social media marketing world probably about 3 years ago, when the algorithm really started to take a dive, and it was, you know, advertisers, it was speakers, it was, you know, everyone was involved and had a strong Facebook following. And then literally overnight, it just started dropping off a cliff, you know, to the point where they'd have to monetize it. So I think, I feel same as you. I hope they don't make it a change.
Yeah. And I think, so, and I think going back to one of your earlier points, and this answers a question that's coming from Thomas, you know, where he's been following both of us for many months, but hasn't really seen or been notified that we've created new content. And again, there's just different sort of elements of this algorithm that, you know, we don't know, right? None of these platforms ever what makes them tick, essentially, right, in terms of how they show content. But I think one difference with LinkedIn versus the other platforms is the fact that you've got almost like first generation, second generation, and third generation contacts. And you know, I think that's very interesting, because you may have the same on say Facebook or Instagram, but it's not as publicly available, right? It doesn't tell you that, okay, this person is in the first level connection, and I think that's quite interesting. So perhaps, Thomas, if you're seeing, you know, people that we have mutual connections with sharing our content, I think, you know, the chances of you being notified of something new would probably increase. But again, you know, we'd be guessing. We've tested bits of that. And we've seen some evidence of that, but it's still a guess.
There is a certain element to control your own destiny. There is if you click on kind of manage my I think it's manage my feed or sort my feed, like if you look on our profile and there's 3 dots, you can connect on there, and LinkedIn will make recommendations of companies to follow, hashtags to follow, people to follow, that may not be in your kind of immediate sphere, like you said, first connections, but they may be in second connections and third connections. I mean, in all honesty, we haven't even touched upon the social selling element. You know, we've been chatting away here talking about LinkedIn, but I mean, there are individuals that use LinkedIn purely from a social selling perspective. You know, actively going out and connecting to individuals, you know, in a smart way. I mean, I think, you know, we've all been targeted by that person that connects with you, doesn't have a note, and then, you know, that's it. I mean, I rarely now connect with people that don't have a little message. You know, I want to know why you want to connect. I do the same. So you can add a note from you know, your desktop. If you want to connect with someone, you can connect. And I think, you know, that the social selling element is interesting as well. So we haven't, you know, to be quite frank and honest, explored the whole kind of sales navigator environment, and just the social selling as far as using the platform to search for prospects and engage with prospects and engage with individuals. But obviously that's huge in the States. I mean, it's a huge part of connecting with people. And also I'd say in Europe now with GDPR, where you know, sometimes you're unable to connect out or blind people, spam them. So people are connecting on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. Well, look, it's funny. I connect with everyone because, you know, essentially the reason I do that is, or I accept requests for connection because invariably now I'd say 4 out of 6 requests I get are followed up by that instant kind of spam email. But again, I'm just intrigued to see how people are using it. And I guess that kind of brings me on to a couple of points. You know, we've got 10 minutes, guys. If you have any questions that you want to share with us, now's the time to start sending them. But Andrew, I think in those last 10 minutes, let's talk about very kind of specific parts of this. So look, if you're a job seeker today, right, what would be your recommendation for them on LinkedIn? What should they be doing? Cool. Where should they be focusing?
So look, we haven't spoken about this, but first and foremost, there now is a little label that you can say open for work. So, you know, LinkedIn have kind of actively jumped on that with COVID and said, you know, you can publicly, so it's a little kind of green thing that says looking for work, open for work. So update your profile to include that. Make sure your profile is 100% complete. And then there's a whole job section on LinkedIn. So we haven't touched upon this at all, but as a job seeker, make sure that your profile is 100% complete and, you know, it's relevant to the things that you might be looking for, and then dive into that job section. So once you dive into that job section, you can search by title, industry, size, and you have the ability to apply for those roles as well on LinkedIn. So I'd say that from looking for work perspective, first and foremost, publicly say that you are. You know, and be very specific, even in your tagline, you know, what you're potentially looking for opportunities in X, let's say 15-year veteran of X, looking for X. So I think the thing is be very clear in that, and then also, you know, use that platform to leverage. You do have the option to, you know, direct connect to people. So quite honestly, we've, you know, had people that have connected with us in LinkedIn. We've had conversations with them, or we've even made recommendations to other people as well. So
Andrew, we just hired someone that connected to me on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
We just hired someone.
Exactly.
So it happens.
So it does happen. I think the fact is there has to be that follow up. So you know, I mean, there's a guy that I follow on LinkedIn, and he's got to the point where he's switched off. I think we're at a certain level you can switch off invitations and connections, and you only connect to other people. I don't ever want to get to that stage. I think I still want to see and explore the network. But like you said, I mean, I think if you are looking for a role, you want to connect with someone, be blatant almost about it, right?
Exactly. There's no harm in putting yourself out there. And actually,
exactly,
I've got a feeling, again, we talk about the algorithm and the reach. I've got a feeling at the moment, LinkedIn are potentially looking at buying some loyalty towards the platform, because those job seekers are getting enormous amounts of engagement, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, and that might be because other people are sharing that content and resharing it and things like that, which is great, which I think is a really nice community aspect of the platform. But certainly, I think you give yourselves a very good chance of being noticed with the right content and being explicit, like what Andrew's just said.
Yeah.
Next question, Andrew.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
If it's a really important point, make it. I'm just conscious of time. Bit of pressure. Okay. Next question. Okay. So if you're so you're someone who wants to kind of build your own brand equity, right? So you're maybe perhaps employed by somebody. Perhaps you're a business leader, perhaps you're a freelancer. What should people like that be doing to get noticed?
I think so. For that, it's really, again, knowing who your audience is and really being yourself. So just making sure that you're not, there's no falsehood attached to it. You're not talking about something potentially that doesn't interest you, or doesn't really understand or appreciate, let's say, your humor or your cultural references. I think that, ultimately, what's the goal? So is the goal to, improve your brand equity, or, look for speaking opportunities, or, potentially look for other opportunities? I mean, I think the thing is, understand what your goal is, and then really just be, consistent and brutally honest, in what you put out there, and how you engage. So, and I'd also say it does take time. So like I said, I mean, there is, I'm, daily, that's my first go-to now. So I'd say that, LinkedIn now is the first thing that I look at after emails, but LinkedIn is the first thing I look at on my phone. And then I'm going through LinkedIn during the day. If I get tagged, I'll see it. And then in the evening, again, I'm kind of closing off the day with LinkedIn. So it does take time and kind of dedication to make sure that you kind of keep engaged on the platform. But you've got to make sure you're enjoying it and doing it for the right reasons, right? Like we said, I mean, that element of consistency. I mean, frankly speaking, there are some posts that I've put up and I thought, that's cracking. Like that's top drawer. Everyone's going to be super excited about this, and it's literally hit like 300-400 people. And I'm like, really? And then other random things that I've put up have been sparked, and then and I've gone, okay, well, I don't understand that. So I think the thing is, a lot of it is trial and error, but a lot of it is just consistency, trying to keep that momentum, right?
Yeah, and
I'd say
it
that.
also, I mean, it also might be LinkedIn's algorithms, being unable to understand what MacGyver and
Yeah.
and Knight Rider have to do with business, I guess. So, if you haven't seen
Yeah.
Andrew's post, go back and have a look. I'm so surprised that you engaged with these new graduates, by the way. I was just thinking that while you were telling that story earlier. I mean, if they went back and checked your previous posts, they would have been so confused. I mean, all of those references are like 30 years before they were born, probably.
20, steady. But they would have, there was some, obviously, I mean, there's a lot of cultural references from my past, but there was also things now like Pickle Rick and stuff like that. So there was definitely some, I mean, I put on about Fortnite on there. I've put on about Travis Scott. Okay. I'm all right. So yeah, no, it's, I think the thing is that, possibly there's some confusion around what I'm posting from a LinkedIn perspective.
But you're being true to yourself, which is cool. That's and that's why we haven't had an official meeting about it. But I think
amazing.
It's you. Cool. Last question is companies. Okay, so what advice would you give to companies? And actually, it might be, we've seen some of our clients and people that we work with who've really kind of embraced this as well. I think on the back of seeing our activity. So yeah, what advice would you give to different businesses right now?
Yeah, I'd say that. So from a company perspective, you want to be posting kind of a minimum of, let's say 4 times a month, a bare minimum, and posting about something. It can be about, your industry. It could be an opinion piece, or it could be a thought leadership piece based on your leadership. But again, you want to be starting to get active on there. So even if it is putting content out that then ultimately, your team can share, you just need to make sure that you have, again, that element of consistency. So the fact is that you can, look potentially to, fire up some groups and kind of attach those back to it. But I think it's just, again, that consistency piece. I mean, we're seeing more interest from a company perspective nowadays, to be on LinkedIn and then be engaged on LinkedIn, because again, the metrics that they're providing are, they're decent, right? So you can see the kind of followers, the people that are coming in and connecting to you, where that traffic has gone. So I'd say that you do need to have some type of content. That may be a CSR initiative. It may be something that you're rolling out locally. It may be employee engagement. So we've used LinkedIn as well to recruit. we think it's a great platform to recruit from. You know, the caliber of applicants that we get on our LinkedIn, you know, acquisition is far greater than anything else, to the point where we don't use recruitment agencies, right? We use that platform to look for candidates. So I think that even if you want to use it for that, there's several different ways that you can use the platform. So don't feel like you just have to put a press release on there, or, you know, just try to make it interesting.
And I think that point about engaging employees is important. So if you are sharing, you know, content that is sort of share worthy, then you know, I think educate your employees. Rove Hotels is a great example. So Paul, who's been a guest on this show, has seen our kind of visibility on LinkedIn sort of increase and multiplied. So, you know, there's an engagement that's definitely going on there at the moment, where, you know, his team have been empowered to, again, build their personal kind of brand equity.
That's right.
Create content, share it on LinkedIn. And at the moment on my feed, for example, I'm seeing, you know, for every 50 pieces of content, I'm seeing at least 5 bits of Rove content. You know, so again, from a company-wide brand visibility perspective, enormous opportunities, but be brave and get your employees to sort of engage with the platform, and with your content. And I think that works really well.
And look, I think you know, the challenge is that you're going to get, what we hear is, well, you know, I need to build my following, and, you know, I don't want to have 4 people following me, or 10 people following me, or 100 people, or 300 people. You know, I'm a regional brand, or I'm a multinational company. The fact is, you have to start somewhere, and you've got to give people a reason to follow you. So, I mean, you know, if you're not providing value to your audience, again, in some form, right? It may be tips, it may be a blog, it might be a press release, it might be CSR initiative, it may be employee enrichment, whatever that is, as long as there's something, you can start to build your following. You know, we've grown, so 16,500 now, I think. What are we at? 22,000, 21,000?
24,000 now.
Okay, 24,000. So that's, I mean, literally in the space of 4 months. Yeah. So 8,000 new followers, you know, and we've also lit the spark on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, or other social platforms. We decided to do that at the same time, but we've got nowhere near the growth that we've seen on LinkedIn, right?
The engagement is vastly different on LinkedIn compared to other platforms. Yeah, I mean, we get, and just to kind of put that into some sort of numerical value, we get about 30 times more, that's 30 times more engagement on LinkedIn than we do on Instagram and Facebook posts. And I think, like Andrew mentioned earlier, it's led to business, and not just business on a local level, it's business on a global level. So we picked up clients in the States,
exactly,
in Europe as well, and also, you know, like I said, there's been, you know, paid speaking engagement. So LinkedIn has certainly been sort of successful for us. I'd say I've been blown away by actually how successful it's been. The volume of leads that it generates, the volume of traffic that's driven to our website on the back of it. But I guess, you know, the early advice I'd give to somebody is just, you know, don't just do 1 or 2 posts. You know, create a whole, you know, series of content, you know, whatever that looks like. If it is what Andrew did in the early days, which is just engaging and sharing other people's content, do that. If you can start to create your own content, that's where the money is. Yeah. So that's that kind of gold mine that you can start tapping into once people are engaging with your own content, especially if it's branded content as well.
True.
You know, so yeah, I guess that's kind of, you know, that's my advice. And I guess that sums it up, really. Andrew, anything else you want to add?
Perfect. No. I mean, look, in all honesty, we could crack on for another hour as usual. You know, we do find ourselves, we don't want to talk forever, as it were, but some nice questions have come in today. And by all means, I mean, you know, reach out to us on Nexa, and also individually on LinkedIn, connect with us. I mean, I'd say at the end of each one of these shows over the past 9 weeks, there's been connections straight away, and I've actually got a connection. I've seen 2 pop up since I've been here. So obviously, I mean, it's nice to kind of connect on there and then continue the conversation on there as well. So yeah, just, I think, as you mentioned there, Amit, you've got to, you know, go for it, try it. I mean, in all honesty, it might not be for you, right? You may kind of, but there's no harm in trying, you know, and seeing what kind of response you can get from those early posts and those early activity. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. We love the support that we get. We love
Yeah,
and really
thank
kind of
you.
appreciate the positive comments and feedback we get as well. And look, always looking for ideas. If you have any kind of ideas on new topics that we can talk about,
Yeah,
anything that's really kind of, something that you can't get to grips with, we're more than happy to kind of tackle those kinds of topics.
100%.
But yeah, thank you very much for joining us today.
See you guys. Have a
Take
good
care.
day. Bye.